I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's approximately 6:50, and the first item on the agenda is the continuation of the executive search process. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Bill Adams from Ray & Associates to continue the process, which I know includes a number of things. And I'm sorry we don't have your lovely face, Bill, but 4 out of 5 of us are here, and hopefully Mike Flaherty will join us shortly.
Well, thank you. Again, I apologize if it's a problem with the technologies at our end, and I may at some point have to take a fight to meet a commitment because of our delays as a result of the tech. The other thing you don't want to know, since we are short in time, we had some flood situations today. Again, no damage, but wading in salt water at this time of the year is not a fun thing. But that said, there's really 3 things we'd like to accomplish tonight. One, and probably the most important, is for the school committee to approve the characteristics. And then 2, to have you look at the application to make sure you're comfortable with it. And then 3, just to make a comment that I think a wonderful job was done with the flyer. And it's a matter then of the final characteristics being substituted for the samples that are there, depending on what you as a school committee agree to. Do all of you have the document in front of you called the Wareham Public Schools Superintendent Search Constituent/Staff/School Committee Survey Results?
Yes.
Okay. If you could all turn to the first page where it says Wall Score Sheet.
Got it.
Now, there are the raw scores. This is what I said initially, where you can see how many from a given group participated. Now, we only had 152 total, but I think what was important, if you add these comments to what we learned in the stakeholder meetings, and obviously to the individual and board member or school committee interviews, I think we have a pretty good cross-section. You actually had 62 teachers respond, 11 administrators, 13 support staff, 32 parents, 2 students, 2 from non-parent, 29 from non-parent community members, and then others that did not identify themselves, 3, for a total of 152, plus the 5 school committee members that responded.
Bill, can you tell us how that compares to other searches for similar-sized communities?
You know, we've had similar-sized communities with less than 100. We've had similar-sized communities with as many as 500. But I have to be, real frank about this. Although the people who are the ones that are going to speak up are passionate and they're going to be heard, often if people aren't really down on the job of the school committee, that the school committee is doing, given all of the circumstances, it's not a referendum for change. And if it were, you would have had 500. So I think that the positive side of the low numbers is that although there's concern, although there's serious concern about funding, serious concern about some of the school programs, it's not to the level that it provoked a huge negative response. And here's why I think we can say that from a data standpoint. If you look at the 85, well, I believe it's 44 comments that were received. That's another page that we'll talk about later. You have 11 pages of 44 comments. And if you look at those comments align pretty much with our stakeholder meetings. And these were comments written by the 152 people that responded. And I'm going to suggest that those comments be used as we formulate questions once candidates are identified, and that they also be utilized by you, the school committee, and whomever you select to build your goals from, because this is a sense of your community. Not that you all don't have a good sense, you can see it spelled out. And I'll go over some of those when we get to that point.
Okay, thank you.
So that said, if we take a look at the wall score sheet, let's just look down the teacher column. Now, 62 teachers responded, and 41 of them thought that someone who inspires trust, self-confidence, and models high standards was important. Of your 11 administrators, 7 felt that was important. Of your 32 parents, 22 thought that was important. Of your 2 students who responded, both thought it was important. And 4 of the 5 of you considered it important. So to us, that sounds like a characteristic that is important to this community and to this school committee. We can do the same thing and look at number 7, and that refers to question 7 on the Yellow Canary 33 characteristic survey that you have. 34 teachers felt that was important. That came in number 2 for them, and then 4 of your 11 administrators. But then you go over 10 of your 13 support staff. And then again, if you look at non-parents, there were only 29, but 18 felt that was important. And then again, if you look at the raw score for the school committee, 3 of your thoughts, strong communicators, speaking, listening, and writing was important.
Bill, to save time, I think we get the idea. I think you can move on.
Okay. All right, then that's all I wanted to do with that. Now let's go to the next page. On the next page, as I said we would do, we did away with rank. And we did away with rank, not rank, but we did away with numbers, just to show. So let's go back to the same place. Now, if you look at if you look at question number 1, which was, is willing to listen to input that is a decision maker, that was a high rank with your administrators, a fairly high rank with your support staff. It ranked 5th out of 33 with you, the school committee. So we looked at that, and we ended up combining number 1 with number 15, experience in management of district resources, and combine that, and you'll see that. If you go down to number 6, which I used as an example before, your teachers had that as number 1, administrators 2, support staff 2, parents 2, the students 1, the 2 students who responded, your other community members 2. You, the board, had it as a 1. So again, we've now taken out the raw numbers, and we've looked at the ranks. And you can go through. I circled all of the top ones, but where you see recommended or combined, that gets us then to the next sheet. There's a white sheet that you have that says Wareham Public Schools seeks a superintendent who, and then we have a red recommend. You all have that?
Yes.
Yes.
If you follow what I was saying with the 2 sheets and how we got to that, add in the stakeholder meetings that we had, and then add in those 44 comments, we believe that these, or something very close to this, would be the characteristics that we would be looking for. And we used some of these as we were talking to people on the West Coast, and I'll give you an update on that as well. But that first one, inspires trust, has high levels of self-confidence and optimism, and models high standards of integrity and personal performance. That's number 6. Is a strong communicator, speaking, listening, and writing. That was number 7 on the characteristics. Number 17, strongly committed to student first philosophy in all decisions. And so on as you go down that list. And we think that list most closely resembles what the stakeholders and what you, the school committee, said they were looking for. And that's really where our discussion, I leave off and say, what do you think of that?
Okay. Members, comments, concerns, questions?
And this is really about the characteristics that will go into the flyer. So these are important because these are the things that, after all of the input, this is what's bubbled up to the top, and what will be put into the flyer is the characteristics that we're looking. So if anyone feels strongly about one that isn't on there that you that you feel strongly, that's the conversation and debate that we should have right now.
Right. Or another way of putting it, is there any one of these things you'd like to delete? Or is there any one of those the characteristics that you think were left off that you'd like to add?
I'll start. I think that the one thing that I think is missing overall in this is that accountability about having a good manager that holds his managers and the organization accountable for results. And I just didn't really see that.
Yes, I concur. I only saw the word accountability once in the whole list, and I would have preferred to have seen it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that was number 13. I thought that number 13 on the original list, ability to delegate authority while maintaining accountability.
Right.
I thought that was pretty important.
Agreed.
So it's there. The question is, and I guess I'll throw it back to you, Bill, do you think it's there enough to send a message?
Well, it was recommended.
Yeah.
It was on the
Right.
recommended list.
Right.
Right.
Do you think it's there enough by just being on one of the lists, on one of the phrases of a list of 10?
Given
But it's on
your,
there. It's on the big
your
list.
concern, which you've expressed to me since day one of our relationship about accountability, I would say that I think that number 13 or some variation of 13 should be added, whether it's able to delegate authority appropriately while maintaining accountability would be important.
But it is on the main list.
Right.
Exactly.
It's right.
In fact,
It's on the main list.
I have to say now, as I'm double checking accountability for our staff, if you go back to page 2 of the rankings, that should be on there.
It is.
It is. So what's
Just
the
by,
debate?
No,
just by
it-
looking, that's
Bill,
that's
it
the
is.
profile.
Bill, it's on the list. It's on the master list.
So,
Yeah,
Bill,
it should-
it's on. Hold on. So, that piece is ability is able to delegate authority appropriately while maintaining accountability is on the list, the recommended list. What we're saying is it enough just to have that one bullet, or do we need to have that point in different bullets on this recommended sheet?
I don't think so. You're hitting the highlights, which are the absolute minimum that you expect. And I think you, as a school committee, I think even your administrators, and to some extent, some of your teachers, were very clear about somebody who will delegate and maintain accountability. And I think even that surfaced where there was an expectation that that was going to be happening at building level. So I don't. You could strengthen that perhaps, but I don't think you need to add anything.
Okay.
It definitely should be there.
Rhonda, you all set otherwise?
Yes.
Anybody else? Comments, concerns, questions, additions, deletions?
Number,
We just lost our lights.
Oh my gosh.
No,
We're
they're-
we're having technology problems this evening. I've
No,
got another group that is waiting for me to talk to them for 10 minutes, but I want to keep us. If we
No,
can,
no,
moving.
we're back. We got lights back. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay.
on the,
Are we okay? Are we okay on the recommended characteristics?
No, Ken has a comment.
Okay.
I would have liked to have seen number 3 on there, has leadership skills to respond to challenges of ethnic and cultural diversity based on the cultural diversity we have in Wareham. And it seems like it was ranked 8th, I think, on the raw score sheet. Am I reading that correct?
Look under rank, not raw.
Are you looking at page 2 or page?
Oh, well, on page 2, it's 12.
It was ranked by teachers as 17, by administrators as 5, support staff 19, parents 13, students 15, to 2 students. Your community member 17th, 1 by others, 8 by the board, and the total ranking was 12. Now, we use a ranking to get to consensus, but if there's a strong feeling, I mean, again, in the stakeholder meetings, in my interviews that we did with individuals, it was pointed out that your community is a very diverse community, and it's culturally diverse as well as ethnically diverse. So certainly you want to convey that to candidates, and candidates certainly have to be sensitive to that and be able to work in that type of community, because it's all of the community they've got to bring together.
Can I suggest something? And I think I said this to you in our one-on-one. I think we're looking for a candidate that's more than just sensitive to it. I think we're looking for a candidate that enjoys it, that appreciates it, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a big difference than just being sensitive. And I agree that it's missing. So
Embrace it.
Excuse me?
Embrace it.
Yes, embrace it. Good word. So I think we need to get it in there somehow. I don't know how the other members. So Ken and I are 2 votes to have that put in somehow. Anybody else?
Absolutely.
I'm in agreement.
Yes. So we're in agreement that needs to be a part of it.
Jeff, could I suggest to the committee that we use number 3, but add this, has leadership skills and appreciation to respond to challenges of ethnic and cultural diversity?
No, I like embraces.
No.
I think
don't
Cliff
like
had the
the
right
respond.
word.
No, respond's the wrong word.
Go ahead, Cliff.
No, embrace it, work within it, not respond to it, because now that's laying the impression to me that it's going to be knee-jerk and it's going to be reactionary.
That's it. It's reactive instead of proactive.
Absolutely.
So you're talking as leadership skills to embrace the challenges of ethnic and cultural diversity? Is that
Not
what-
challenges. Embrace the richness of it. And if challenges
Has
are
le-
there, then that's fine.
Has leadership skills
To work within that culture.
to embrace, what did you say? Embrace,
Embrace the multi-ethnic and multi-diversification of Wareham and work within that framework.
you said a word though before.
And I would even change.
What? Richness. Yeah,
Richness.
so has leadership skills to embrace the richness of ethnic and cultural diversity.
Correct.
Good phrase. I would like to change one word instead of the leadership skills, not to embrace, that embraces.
Has leadership skills that embrace
Yes, that embrace, right.
that
And the rest.
Good word.
Yes.
The richness.
embrace the richness of ethnic and cultural diversity.
Beautiful. That's perfect. We're in agreement.
Rhonda, would you read that back to me, please?
You forgot it.
Has leadership you have it? Yeah.
Michelle has a.
Yeah. You say it and I'll repeat it. Has leadership skills
that embrace
the richness
of ethnic and cultural diversity.
of the ethnic and cultural diversity.
Yes. Just add
Got
the-
it?
I wasn't good at my vowels.
Yes, I do.
Just add the adjective.
As leadership skills that embrace
The richness
the richness of ethnic and cultural diversity.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other changes?
Yeah, I would
or
put
any
the.
Sorry, of the ethnic and cultural diversity.
Of our community.
Well, if you add our community, it works. But if you just
Rhonda?
leave off, go ahead, Bill.
Could I ask Rhonda to email me that and get back to me?
Michelle will do it. Michelle's got it, and she'll do it, and we'll make sure it's consistent with what we just agreed upon before we leave tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Okay, anybody else have some additions or deletions?
I have one.
Rhonda, didn't you already have your turn?
I have so many turns. Has knowledge of emerging research and best practices in the area of curriculum instruction, design, and practice? Cliff, what am I going to
What
say?
number, please?
The second to last one. has knowledge of emerging research and best practices in the area of curriculum, instruction, design, well, somehow putting technology in there.
Yes,
Oh, number
So has
13.
knowledge of emerging research and best practices in the area of technology when it comes to curriculum, instruction, design, and and practices.
Jeff,
Yes,
excuse me, could I ask, as you round those out, could you give me a 5 to 7 minute break, and then I could do this and without, and make, I just want to make sure I get every word, and I've got a bunch of people holding for me for
Just
7
email it
minutes.
to me.
fine. Okay,
Great, thank you. I'm going to leave the line open, and I'll come right back on.
okay.
He's got a bunch of people holding for him?
Yep, so has knowledge of, because we started late, Cliff, has knowledge of emerging research and best practices in the area of technology, well, I don't want to make it all about technology, so if folks can jump in. Has knowledge of emerging research and best practices in the area of curriculum, instruction, design, and practice. Where can I insert technology in there? Emerging research
Curriculum, instructional design, comma, technology.
and practice.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay, so Michelle, we're adding an S to practice, and we're putting a comma after design, adding technology, and then comma and practice. And as long as we've got a couple minutes, why don't you read back your current version of the bullet regarding diversity?
As leadership skills that embrace the richness of the ethnic and cultural diversity.
It's not a great grammatical sentence. The spirit is exactly what we want. That embrace the richness of our,
No, of the.
well, can we put out of, do we want?
Yeah,
do we
of
want-
our.
Do we want to personalize it and say our?
of our communities.
Well, that's at the end.
Well, we didn't officially add that, that's the point.
Well, and it wouldn't really go so well given the header, proven ability to, if it hasn't proven anything in our community.
Correct.
I never like bullets that start off with has anyways.
Okay.
I'd rather have it like displays.
But
So you wanna
Mike's-
read it again?
Mike's right, there's a header here. Seeks a superintendent who has proven ability to, and how does the sentence start? Michelle?
Leadership skills.
Oh, so, forget has, proven ability to lead,
Ability.
and what, how does it continue?
How about just to embrace, to embrace?
Richness.
Okay, the bottom line is two doesn't work.
Mm,
The header doesn't work.
Lead doesn't work either.
No, it doesn't. And in fact, a number of these bullets don't go with two, so I guess we'll just forget about it.
Well, they'll
point,
have to
but-
update it.
All right. Say it one more time, please, Michelle.
Has leadership skills that embrace the richness of the ethnic and cultural diversity.
You don't need the word the.
I wouldn't.
Exactly what I was thinking. You don't need the word "the," just scratch "the."
Do we vote on scratching D?
Yes, please.
The and
So
thou.
moved.
The and thou.
Does that work, Michelle? Okay, good.
So what about the order of these?
I hadn't thought about that particularly. Can I bring up before we print this?
It doesn't have to be hierarchical, do you think?
I don't think it needs to be in order because they're all important.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Once you start ranking them, I think it,
I may be missing something, but this promotes
Spider committee.
positive student behavior conducive to a healthy learning environment. I was trying to figure out what that even meant. I mean, yeah, we don't want this individual to be a child molester. I mean, but what does promotes
I'll bet
positive?
you $100 that came from a teacher or teachers.
No, this was one of the 33
One of the
characteristics.
list.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the lists, but I bet you
All of
ranked
these
higher
are.
with the teachers.
But it's, obviously, we want this person to be
Right.
a role model for our students. But
Right.
isn't that a given? Why do we have to take up space with something that, to me, is just a given? Cindy, is that something that grabs you as a characteristic? You see the one we're talking about? Right, exactly. I don't even know what it means either. Thank you for.
It's confusing.
It's confusing, and to me, it just doesn't do anything for us. But if I'm the only one who feels that way, I.
Talking about 22, Jeff?
Starts with promotes positive student behavior.
Conducive to healthy.
Right. To me, I didn't even know what it meant, and.
Well, that's probably why someone with my talent didn't check that one off.
Well, I think it goes beyond student behavior anyway.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It goes for student behavior, fine, but also expectations for student academic achievement. And I think that,
I
And
think
we've
that's
already-
pretty much covered in the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
ones.
Anybody have any problem with we simply delete it?
I don't have a problem with
Neither do I.
Ken?
Nope.
Mike?
No.
Good. Delete it. Okay.
So on number 3, why didn't it read just as it was on here?
Which is number 3.
Possesses the leadership skills required to respond to the challenges presented by a ethnically and culturally diverse community. He changed it in here. Right?
Did he combine? Because some of them,
Some of them he combined, so if
Combined.
you see like 1 and 15 are combined.
Well, no, 3 was the one that I wanted
really?
to add, and it was left off. And I'm saying the way it is written here is pretty
Good catch.
straightforward.
So
Another
there's
technology disaster
required to
averted.
respond to the challenge presented by an ethnic. But Cliff didn't want challenges in there.
Well,
that. No,
I like the way
because
that
of
we wrote
me.
it.
I just don't like that word. It's reactionary.
Yes.
Which one? Oh. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I agree with you completely, yes. Can we move to the
Hold
flyer
on,
to save some time?
Mike's got a question.
Mike,
Just a suggestion, and I know we said we didn't want to rank these, but I think it might be, it would be consistent with what we said to maybe move the item about accountability to the top.
Because the thing is that, yes, we might not want to rank them because they're all important, but an individual reading the flyer, they're going to automatically think that they're ranked.
they might. You're 100% correct.
I know I would.
On the other hand, that inspires trust seems to be a universally.
I know when
Um,
I liked the first 3 where they were, but
so let's move accountability up to 4. Where's the diversity one right now?
Nowhere, because
it's not on there.
you just added.
We added it.
So if you take the place of the one you deleted.
Agreed.
You know, the other thing, in terms of the hierarchy here, you could probably put a parenthesis statement. Put it,
in no
make a
particular order.
parenthetical notation on it, and just say, no established order. No established order.
That's a good question to ask Bill when he gets back, as to whether he thinks psychologically having them in a certain order makes a difference. But, okay, so we're going to insert the diversity in the place of the one we deleted, and we'll ask him about ranking. Mike, did you have anything else?
Not on that.
Okay. Can we talk about the newsletter briefly? Because I'm sure he's going to want approval on this. The first thing, obviously, is that area of the newsletter will be shifted. Anybody else have any concerns about the newsletter?
I thought it looked really good.
That was a great job.
It's Michelle. I mean,
I know.
I think we
Michelle,
need to
that
take a
was
moment here, and huge kudos to Michelle for all of that, everything that she did. I read it and I was like, okay,
Michelle?
My bell.
yes.
Therefore, I agree completely. However,
Uh-oh.
Change that.
Oh, boy.
in the end of the first paragraph, under the town of Wareham, I think you meant to say, the area of town known as Onset.
Do you have the one that you gave me, Michelle?
Here, this first paragraph where the map is of Massachusetts.
Last sentence in that first paragraph.
Area of town known as something.
Isn't that what you meant?
To tell you the truth, I didn't write it, I just picked it off of all different
Good,
companies and
okay,
put it together,
okay.
so.
Secondly, on the second page, salary and benefits is formatted as a simple paragraph, but it looks like requirements is centered. And it actually kind of looks like funny to have a different formatting unless
That's how they did it.
that's how they did it.
Yeah, just so you know, from a format standpoint,
Yeah.
content, very, very happy. Format, I really want to take this to a graphic designer, and I know that we don't have time, but I want to take a shot at it.
Okay, fine, okay, so I'll leave that. And then also, and Cliff, this is probably more your area, I was reading under Inspiring Excellence. Is it really the STEAM program and not the STEM program? They've added art, and it's now an A, STEAM, not STEM?
That's the new one at the Deacon School.
That's the new one,
It's
STEAM.
Technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Yes.
It's
And-
elementary.
And the National Junior Honor Society applies to the elementary schools?
Under that sentence, at the elementary schools, destination,
Yeah,
imagination.
but I thought the National Junior Honor Society was for the middle school.
It's at the middle
It's at the Deacon's as well?
Yeah, Deacon is one of the
Okay.
ones that just started. It's a new innovative program.
Okay, and finally, I don't know, to me, using in the very first sentence under the town of Wareham, with a diverse and eclectic landscape. I had a problem with eclectic.
I had to look it up.
The first problem,
I didn't write it, I just took it off something.
first of all, diverse and eclectic are really redundant. Second of all, I wouldn't use eclectic to describe landscape. And
Eclectic and diverse is not redundant.
it's pretty redundant.
Eclectic means
Various.
various.
Yeah, well, diverse, various, variety.
Take out and
I think one is geography and one is culture.
Well, I would agree with that, but it's modifying landscape.
How pristine, with a diverse and pristine landscape that includes miles of coastline and rugged highways dotted.
Pristine is a stretch.
Yeah, that's a stretch too, especially if you look at all the litter everywhere.
We don't need to go there. Do I have any more votes to delete eclectic?
Sure.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay, we're deleting eclectic. All right, anybody else have a problem with the flyer, other than the fact that Rhonda's gonna play with the formatting?
I hope I can. I'm hoping they're gonna tell me that I can work with somebody.
Where we stuck in known, where it goes into the stuff, the annual events that we do in the summer, I think we should have fireworks in there. That's a big event.
It is a big event, I hadn't thought about that. Because
traffic jam, I know
it's not guaranteed, because it does require
Yeah.
donations. It has been generally,
Last year was one of the best.
So what do you?
Yeah, but they're also thinking of,
Use your judgment, but somehow get the fireworks in there.
no, it's a good point, there's an obvious place to put it. Yeah,
Tell Michelle where that obvious place is.
Hey, what do you want to call it?
Yeah.
Fireworks?
Well, what is it called? It's onset,
Fourth of
That's
July
all right.
celebration.
yeah, Fourth of July.
4th of July
be-
fireworks
4th of July
celebration.
fireworks, okay.
you know, they're working on bringing back the Harvest Moon Festival.
Oh, really? Maybe that was before
Yes.
my time.
Would
So
love
we're-
that.
Salernos are doing that
Well, that's great.
with OBA.
Well, that's great.
I think under the second paragraph where it starts with, where the second or whatever sentence, the action really heats up with annual events like the Wareham Swan Festival, the Onset Bay Association Blues Festival, you can insert comma, the 4th, or Independence Day, what do you, 4th of July
July fireworks.
celebration fireworks. 4th of July celebration fireworks.
Celebration
Oh,
fireworks.
so-
Yeah.
Celebration.
4th of July celebration fireworks works for me, but I don't care.
That works for me too.
Okay.
And I did have a question about under inspiring excellence, second paragraph. It says this, the district-wide team is composed of 22 teacher leaders.
Yes.
Are those instructional leaders? What
No.
are those?
Those are, that's a separate group. It's an instructional leadership team,
Yeah.
separate group.
Ay, Dios pacientes.
I had two change grammatical on the top, the WPC, I think it should be WPS. I don't know what
Good
the
point. I
WPC
guess I
stands
looked at
for.
WPC and thought I was just something I didn't recognize. Yes, let's make it WPS.
It's Wareham's public challenge.
Right
That's
after
what we're
that,
facing.
there's an extra bullet. Under the first one, it should be a second bullet, so I'll put it in the third.
I'm sorry, say that again, Michelle?
That first sentence,
Yes?
under that, is a.
Oh, yes, you're right. It's an extra
I'm just
bullet.
gonna take that bullet out.
An extra
Those are
bullet,
things
right.
for typos.
Yep, okay. All right, we all set with the flyer? Okay. And the timeline. Anybody have any conflicts with the timeline?
I I don't, but just to make everybody aware, I will be missing a meeting in April.
You better not miss the 10th.
Uh,
You're gonna really be sorry if you miss the 10th.
I don't even see the 10th on here.
No, I'll be missing,
Which,
yeah, I'll be missing the 10th.
no. I'm saying there is a scheduled meeting for April 10th.
I'll be missing the 10th.
Who is?
Bill,
Yes,
you're back?
yes, I am. I again apologize. I'm here until whatever.
Okay, good. On the list, Michelle will send you the final language for the list, but we wanted to let you know we deleted one, and where we deleted it, we will add the one that Michelle is going to send you. And the one we deleted was the one near the bottom which starts, promotes positive student behavior.
Okay.
And finally, we wanted to ask you about the issue of the order of these. Do you think it matters? Do you think that the candidates will psychologically draw a conclusion that the first one is the most important and the last one is the least important?
We don't normally find that. We simply normally just rate them in the way they come off, the characteristics. But there's no objection. Certainly, if you, the committee, want to rank them or put them in a different order, that's your pleasure. Just have Michelle put them in the order you want us to use in all of our promotions with our associates and so forth.
Okay, good. And we also went over the flyer in your absence.
Okay.
Was that on your list of things to do?
Yes, just to make sure that you were. If the flyer was, if the input was great. This really, we like what we saw, but you as a full committee may have some modifications.
Okay. Bottom line is we made some slight changes that Michelle has recorded and can send to you. But Rhonda, do you want to speak to the formatting issue?
Sure. Bill, looking at the design, I think the person, whoever designed it, but I'm thinking that it could just use a little bit of work just from a presentation standpoint. Do we have resources in your office that if I talk to them, I can say kind of what I'm looking for from a graphic design standpoint?
Well, we don't have a graphic designer, but it's well worth a call to our office to see, to express what it is you'd like to see, to change, to make changes, to make it more appealing. I think, make those suggestions, and we'll try to have them work on it. Although keep in mind that we do not have a graphic designer that works, in the office. We do have someone that's designed and worked, on literally hundreds of these, and therefore I'm, fairly confident that they could probably help to get what it is you're trying to convey.
Who's that person? Who is that person, Bill?
Well, Carrie Gray would be the person to talk to before we even hired Carrie full-time. That's what she did for us, the flyers.
Okay, did Carrie Gray do this one?
I don't know that.
Did you have any contact with a Carrie Gray?
I've been having contact with a Penny, a Carrie, and a Heidi.
Okay.
So I have 3 people that I've been.
Okay, fine.
Rhonda, I would suggest reaching out to Heidi and telling her you have some thoughts on the flyer, and you'd like to talk to the person that put it together, or let her know what it is. I believe it was Carrie because, to my knowledge, almost all of them that are done in the office are done through Carrie Gray.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Bill, what else is on your list for tonight?
The only other thing on the list is the application that we're ready to go up online. If you give us the okay with the application the way it is, it'll be up online tomorrow. And as soon as we can get those couple of things with the flyer, we'd like to get that online as well.
Make sure you tell him you scrapped one of the things.
Yeah, we told him that Michelle's going to send the list to him. Okay, any comments on the application?
Nope.
I thought it was,
I didn't see the application.
I did. I don't actually have it in front of me, but I remember thinking it was pretty vanilla, but it was fine.
It wasn't sent to us.
It wasn't sent to the rest of the
I
committee.
haven't
wasn't?
seen it.
No, I
How did I,
didn't.
how did I get it?
You're the chair?
No.
I
No,
haven't seen any
we did get an
application.
email, but then I thought that they would have given that to the whole entire committee, so.
I would say based on time, Mr. Chair, and if you saw it and you're comfortable, we should move with it.
I apologize. I just sort of assumed everybody got it.
I thought it was part of this packet.
Yeah, I didn't
Have
see
you
it.
seen it, Rhonda?
Yes.
And did you think it was okay?
I thought it's generic.
It's generic. It's,
I mean, there are things, of course, that I would want to put on it, but that would take discussion, you know, and I'm hoping that the application is accompanied by the resume and the background information that will have most of those things that I'm looking
Exactly.
for.
Does the application have a statement, personal statement? An
Yes,
essay.
Let me,
good, one
let
second.
me, let me clarify what comes in with an application. Online, generally, a person writes a letter of application to say that they want to be a candidate for the job, and they usually embellish that with why they want to be a candidate and what some of their skills are. They then do the electronic application. They then submit a complete resume which supplements the application. What we don't accept on the application is C resume. So we want the basics on the application so we can look across the board at each candidate, but in the backing that up is a resume, and then backing that up are 4 letters of reference, generally written within 90 days and specific to the characteristics in the district. So the application is not the one document. There's a lot of redundancy in what we do. Even with the flyer is one tool that we use. And that one, it's not an all-encompassing tool. That's probably not going to be what gets that one candidate that we want, or those 5 top candidates that we want. It's going to help. It's all part of it. So you don't have to, each item does not have to be all-inclusive. And yeah, you're right. The resume is relatively generic. We use a form similar to this in most of our searches, including state superintendents of instruction. And then it's supplemented by resumes and letters of inquiry and so forth.
All the same.
Yeah.
The only thing, a lot of applications will have a personal statement, like, almost like an essay. There'll be a prompt, and they'll have to respond to it on the application. I know I've had to do that several times.
That's fine, that's your basic.
Okay, Bill.
So it's whether we do want to add on to their personal statement.
That's up to you guys.
I don't feel strongly about it. It's not necessary for me. Okay, I actually have it on my laptop. I just gave it to Ken. He's looked at it, thinks it's fine. Cliff is looking at it now. The timeline that was sent, is there anything you want to go over with respect to the timeline?
Not unless there's any during the weeks. We made our modifications on the timeline as per our last conversation to avoid the spring break and to ensure that in the end of the process, when you use your screening committee, that people were going to be in town, and obviously that you were going to be in town. This just reflects our last discussion. There have been no changes other than the changes we agreed to the last time we talked.
What, in your mind, from the committee's involvement, is the next key date for you?
Well, the next key date for the community's involvement is going to be after, if you go to 423, consultant develops and finalizes interview questions with the board. Semi-finalists are presented to the committee.
Okay.
And when then after that, you're going to do your first round of interviews when you select them. So key date 423, and then for your screening committee, 429 is when you're going to need that group when you interview semifinalists.
So
And
we'll have by the 23rd of April a group of what? How many semifinalists do you envision?
you know, we can't tell. I told Rhonda that I would share this, so I'll deviate for just a second, and then try to give you a ballpark. But in LA, without having the characteristics and knowing what, you know, the sense I had from meeting with each of you and meeting with stakeholders, we began to talk to potential candidates, and we interviewed a lot of people. I'd say there were, you know, somewhere between, you know, 7 and 9 that expressed an interest in learning more. And they were specifically people that we targeted to the New England area, not necessarily from the New England area, but an interest in New England area, Massachusetts specific. So we're encouraged by that, just by the conversations we had, without having everything in front of us. We didn't have all the data. We didn't have all the input out there. So I think that's good. So that said, it will depend on the number of applicants. If we get 50 applicants, I would hope that we would be able to vet 20% that would meet your characteristics, and then we may then take the group of 6, 8, 10 that most closely resemble.
Okay, so,
Generally, regardless of the size of the pool, it could be 60, and I would say, you know, we would be somewhere between 6 and 12, and generally we like to be around 8 to 10.
fine, okay.
So
All right, go ahead, Rhonda.
I know that's a wide range, Jeff.
No, that's
but,
okay, that's okay.
Until you get out there, and you know, I don't want to embellish it one way or another. I just want to be frank about, you know, where we think it will shake out based on experience.
Rhonda?
So if we're done with, I just wanted to let folks know, Mike and I discussed this, that what you don't see in here is the screening committee, a date for the screening committee. It's part of the process that goes into finalize the, you know, interview questions, as well as meets with the candidates. So just to give everybody an update on that, for next meeting, because again, it's now, we're done with this piece, and now we're really they're doing their work until 4/23. During that time is when we're going to choose people for the screening committee. So at the next meeting, what I'd like to have on the agenda is for us to actually have that discussion, reopen the vote on the actual committee members. But in the meantime, I'm putting together what the job description of that screening committee would be. And it's going to be very, very simple. The screening committee is going to be one of the bodies that interviews the superintendent. So we're going to be the candidates that Ray and Associates recommend to us. So in that final interview process, or when they first come, that group will be interviewing and then providing their feedback in a structured way to the school committee. Okay, so Ray and Associates has a document that each one of the screening committee members will use when they're looking at the when they're looking at the resumes of the final candidates, interviewing them. They'll have interview questions, and then they'll provide structured feedback to us, and that will go into our decision making when we narrow it down to maybe a couple final candidates and on. And we'll also call on them if we do have any additional things that we want them to do, but their main job will be to be a body that also interviews the superintendent candidates as we're going through that.
At the semifinal stage?
Yes.
Okay. So for next meeting, you want an agenda item to be your recommendation to the committee as to who should be on that body?
My recommendation on, well, the makeup and the job description.
But not the individuals?
No.
Okay.
Because then the next step after that is to get it out in the newspaper, get it out
Fine.
on.
Okay.
So then we're saying this is exactly what we're looking for, and what to do is to submit a letter. I have already received letters of interest, which is great. So I do have people that have already submitted letters of interest, but I need to reopen the vote on the actual committee makeup, because right now we have 2 students on it, and we have there's a little work that we need to do on actually that committee makeup before I put it out there.
Fine. Michelle? Good, thank you. Okay, Rhonda, anything else on the overall search issue that you want Bill to be here for?
I don't have anything, but any other questions or concerns that the committee has?
Mike?
Just to be clear, again, on the applications and resumes, I know we're gonna whittle it down to, a final select few. But we are gonna receive in hand all of the applications and resumes, right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
And they'll be submitted electronically?
We can submit them electronically, yes. I can, typically, if we're going on site, what we do is provide every board member either electronically the day of, and we do not generally put them out prior to. We ask that you commit, a large block of time to individually review each of the candidate packets, which will include a candidate report done by the person on our team that does the background check. There's 22 questions that we ask, and a lot of times the school committees or school boards will use their responses when they ask them questions. So it's a great document for that. You'll also have their letter of inquiry or their letter of candidacy, their application, their resume, and the 4 letters of reference minimally. You will provide that electronically. You may, for that meeting, want to have a hard copy printed out, unless it's a lot of paper. It's a lot of documents if you're flipping from page to page on a computer. We even, depending on the state's sunshine laws, suggest that committee members put their names on them, write on them, take your notes right on them, although we do provide a separate document for notes. We then, in answer to the question about all of the applicants, we provide, I usually, if I'm on site, I just did this Monday for the state superintendent of instruction in Ohio, I had a whole box of all of the applications that contained everything but a candidate report because we didn't vet those people. And we also had just a little blurb about each person. And we encouraged the state board members, if there was anyone that you saw on the list that didn't make it into our potential list of semifinalists, tell us, and we'll share the materials and make a decision whether you want to add or not. So you will have that opportunity. It's a matter of, we can talk about whether you want it solely on your site. We'll provide it to you electronically. You may, however, want to make a copy.
Understood, but you just said a large block of time for us as a committee to go through a large number of applications. Where is...
No. You're adding too many larges, Jeff.
Good.
On 423, we would like to take the time to have the full committee go through each of the potential semifinalists, and we would then give you a matrix, and we would ask that you take that matrix and that you, if there are 10, that you look at each, you go through all 10 individually, and then individually, before you start your discussion, look at candidate 1. And would you take candidate 1 over 2? Which one of the two? And it is a forced choice.
No, stop, Bill. My question,
Yeah.
I understand that part. My question is, if for some reason one of the members of the committee felt that someone deserved to be in the semifinals but was not there, what is the process by which that individual could be inserted into the group?
You would simply have to say, we want them inserted into the group. I would call the office and ask them to shoot you a new matrix, and if we gave you 10 and you wanted 11, you'd have 11.
Right, and when would all of those applications get to us electronically so that we could even decide whether someone should be inserted?
Jeff, our protocols are that you get them the day of or the night of or the Saturday of the review. And we do that for a couple of reasons, and it's served us well over the years for our model. And that is, if you're public notice, first of all, you don't have them. We do. Secondly, there's no conversation, there's no alliances built. There's no calling between members and saying, well, look, I looked at these, this is what, did you support mine, I'll support yours. It eliminates that. that can get into it. And then the other thing that it does, everyone is getting reviewed with the same amount of scrutiny and time. You're doing it separately, but in front of each other. And then once you do the matrix, you see where the numbers shake out, and we can tell you who felt. You may have two committee members that didn't choose an individual one time, and maybe the other three committee members chose the person over other candidates 6 or 7 times. And there's a chance then to see the dichotomy and to have an intelligent discussion about, well, this is why I felt this that way.
Okay,
I didn't pick that one at all.
Bill, stop. Okay, so sometime within about 24 hours before that 4/23 date, all of these applications will be received, and each committee member by themselves will have the ability to come to that meeting armed with the people that they would have chosen to be semifinalists, hoping that other people and you and your organization feel the same way. Is that what you're
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
All right. So one of the reasons why we chose a search firm is because of their screening ability and because of their background and experience and all the work that they did into this. And so I agree that we should receive all of the applications, but I'm really hoping the 24 hours before, when we get everything, on the 23rd, that we have done a thorough review of those 10 and we put them in ranking order, because that's what we need to do on the 23rd. Not that I'm discouraging any committee member to look at the other 40, but absolutely look at those, but I would want to have a separate discussion from the 23rd if we felt strongly about a candidate and come together. We all have to feel strongly about that candidate, but kind of do that after the fact.
But Jeff's question is valid. I mean, just when are we going to get them? 24 hours before?
24 hours in advance. And the only reason why I think that's appropriate is because is that it's also for the privacy of the individuals that are submitting their application.
Okay, your point's well taken. I'm not challenging the value of what we're getting from Ray and Associates. I'm not, but I'm sensitive to the fact that, either we get them all or we don't get them all. If we don't get them all, that process is irrelevant. If we do get them all, then we have 5 strong opinions, in this group, thankfully, and I think there has to be a process to respect the fact that they're going to look at them all.
I want everybody to look at them all.
Not all
Absolutely.
10, but all 50.
I want absolutely.
Okay.
I agree, and I also want to be able to see all of them. And then if all of a sudden I have a question of why somebody wasn't chosen, I would hope that the process would be that then we would call up Ray and Associates first to say, can I ask why this person wasn't there?
But we'll only have 24 hours to do that.
No, you have afterwards too, a week or two afterwards. I mean, the final candidate isn't chosen until
if I
5,
could
6.
interject a minute, you're getting ahead of yourself, and if you want the expert advice that you're paying for, you won't take them 24 hours in advance. You'll schedule a meeting, and you'll put your due diligence in if it takes 5 hours or if it takes 9 hours. It's the way to do it. It takes the politics out. It takes all of the nonsense out. You can bring your iPads. You can Google the people. You can do whatever you want. The process works. I can tell you exactly. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Bill,
We're
stop.
good.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Go ahead. In fact, are we all set?
Yeah, we got
Mike?
6 calls waiting.
I had a question about the screening committee. They're going to have access to these resumes and such as well, obviously, right?
Not all 50, just 10.
Just
Well,
10.
all right. Well, they're going to have access to these 10.
Unless you send them the 11 through 50.
Okay. All right.
No.
But I mean, this is at that point. I mean, these 10 don't become publicly knowable until when? You know what I mean? Like I know that they try to protect their
It's public record as soon as.
When they become a final candidate, they do become public.
So that those 10.
As soon as those 10 are identified, it's public record.
I was just concerned about people that aren't really used to.
Once the pre-screening process, by law, they have to be public. And they're warned of that. Michelle?
The meeting of the 23rd is an executive session then?
That's my next question.
When you're all sitting here for 5 or 9 hours, is that an executive session?
Bill, are you accustomed to having meeting on the 23rd in executive session?
Yes, absolutely.
So they won't be public at that point.
They'll be public as soon as that meeting is done, because they'll,
Okay.
yes.
Jeff, what
That's
that
not true.
allows you to
Joking,
do,
5 to 9 hours.
That's not true.
Well, that's what I mean, because
Those minutes have to be approved first before it becomes public
Yes.
and executive.
as
Well,
I
I-
understand the role that you're going to have for your screening committee, it will be the school committee that does their due diligence on 423. And you will identify those people that you want. You may, if we give you 10, you may say we want to bring all 10 in. There are ramifications to that because it costs to do that. You may say we want to bring 6 in to be interviewed, or 7. They're the 7 that are going to be exposed when you name them as semifinal candidates. What we give you are suggested semifinal candidates because you may add, you may delete before you go public. Once you've identified the semifinalists, that is when I understand your screening committee is going to be involved in interviewing them, as you will be, and they'll give you input.
So
And
429
they'll
is
probably
when
be
they get them.
concurrently interviewing. While you're interviewing one candidate, they may be interviewing another candidate.
Okay,
And then they'll give you their input. And once they give you their input, we'll do the matrix again, and you'll probably narrow that to, from, let's say it went from 10 to 6, possibly to 2. And then at that point, that's generally where your committee's had the opportunity to get down to 2. It's very dangerous if you then bring them back to interview a second round, because that second round is where if that committee chooses candidate A and you, the school committee, decide candidate B is the best person, you're going to have problems before the person ever starts.
Absolutely.
Understood.
Absolutely agree with that.
okay, Mike, go ahead.
Where this meeting is in conflict with town meeting, should we discuss the actual time to meet?
Yeah, Michelle brought up the point that 423 is the second night of town meeting. We have never been known to finish in one night, so I think we can assume that 2 nights is a given. What time of day do you envision that meeting taking place?
Jeff, that's totally up to you. Now, there is an alternative. Remember, we cleared these dates once, twice probably. So it's important that, wherever there's potential conflicts, decide now, because this 423 date is one of your most critical parts of the whole process. You could conceivably, and I don't have holidays in front of me, but you could conceivably push it. The office will go nuts because it doesn't give our people as much time to do the vetting, but you could push it to Saturday the 20th if you wanted to do it on a Saturday.
I wasn't suggesting that we change the date. I was gonna suggest to my colleagues that we plan it for the day, the daytime.
That's a good suggestion. I mean, you can do that if that's not possible.
We have jobs.
We have some boards that will, and some school committees that will consider doing it on Saturdays, and that's actually quite common.
Well, so on
But
423, town meeting starts at 7?
Yeah.
So we're not even, so what are we talking about, a 3-hour meeting, just to be safe?
No, then you say like 5 hours?
Wow.
I
Well,
I would allow a minimum
But
of
it's
4
up.
hours, and I would think that a maximum of 6, and that's why we use that matrix process. But this is a critical meeting that's very hard to shortcut without compromising the model.
So it's either start at 1 o'clock on the 23rd or move it to the 25th.
Cliff is saying, since we're used to meeting on Wednesdays, and I do not believe town meeting generally goes 3 nights in a row. I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday.
They'll never go 3 nights in a row, well, at least they have in the past.
How about 6 o'clock on the 24th?
6?
Getting started early.
He's talking about 4 minimum, maybe 6, and maybe we should start at 5.
Well, I'm considering the fact that some people have a job, including you.
Yes, I do.
She does.
But,
Well, she gets paid.
hey, I researched porta potties today, thank you very much.
I assume any earlier than 6 is a problem for everybody, isn't it?
What's that?
Ken?
No, I have staff.
I could,
I'll have my program coordinator available.
just so we don't feel
Okay.
rushed, I could start at 5 o'clock on the
You could?
23rd.
5 o'clock, going
I could
once?
start at 5, yeah.
All right, 5 o'clock on the 24th.
All right, now, Jeff, 24th, okay, you've moved it one night. Every time you play with a date or move a date, now the 29th is when you're going to interview semifinalist candidates. So if you're going to get 10, now you've cut down by 1 day.
No, it says,
scheduling
Bill, it says the week of the 29th. It doesn't say the 29th.
Okay, then we will have to push that possibly out so that it's not the 29th per se.
What difference does it make?
I
Which would be the
understand.
Monday.
I understand.
Tuesday or Wednesday, what difference does it
I
make?
And I'm
understand.
just looking at it affects flight schedules, but if you're going on the 24th and you're going at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We've got the calendar. We've got the application. Michelle is going to send us the revised characteristics. And will Michelle send those to me and then copy them to our office?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. And Rhonda, just to wrap up, you're going to call Heidi on some thoughts you have on the flyer?
Yes.
Great. All right. Anything else that they're the items that I wanted to make sure we covered and locked in. And I'm glad you did look at the calendar so that so that we can stay committed to this, and let's get it in stone now, though.
It's in stone.
In stone. Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, and again, I apologize for all the delays, and we'll get to Skype because it's been our lifeline, and it worked during stakeholder meetings, and we'll figure out what went wrong tonight.
You look good on the screen today.
All right.
You like the way I look better today, Jeff? Is that all right?
Take care, Bill.
Okay, take care. Good night, all.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Before we break, I got a couple of things I
Oh,
want to.
oh, no, we're not breaking. We got one more agenda item, but feel free to,
No, I'll wait till.
okay.
Wareham has an 8-point lead in the third quarter.
I'll lose this 20-point lead here, coach.
It's only the third quarter. By the end of the third, they'll be up by 14.
Where are they playing?
Next door.
Oh, so the
Turn the
floor
ball
was
out.
fine.
Well, they had to put a dehumidifier and some, to get the water out.
This is what I asked for, but.
Okay. I asked for the educational vision to be put on the agenda because after hearing Barry's presentation to the Finance Committee, how many of us were here? There, not all
No,
of
us.
us.
Just me and you.
Were we the only two that were there?
Yeah.
Okay. After hearing Barry's,
No, I thought it was there.
No, you mixed up in a different meeting, the last one.
oh, no, the one prior to
We
that.
were,
We're all five
We
of us
were all
here?
at the hat meeting.
yeah.
Yes, good,
Yeah.
okay. After hearing that, but that, I heard that for the first time after Barry's presentation.
How's it feel?
It occurred to me that even though he's gotten input from the Budget Advisory Committee, I didn't necessarily assume that that input was unanimously in favor of what he was proposing. He had simply gotten input.
No, it's advisory.
Excuse me?
It's advisory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I took it as Barry's proposal and not the two members necessarily in concurrence. And it seemed to me that the situation was so dire, and I hesitate to use the word, but it really to me is, that we really need to talk about how we're going to provide education given the resources that we've got. Now, let me just quickly go through why I think the situation is dire and needs this discussion. The non-net situation. If there's a good news, that's where it is. We asked for 1.6. They're offering us 1.45. Difference is 150,000. I have been working with, discussing with Jeff Tatro the three-tier proposal, and somewhat to my surprise, it looks like it's actually going to work. I'm surprised because what we're really doing is three runs in the space of in the same amount of time as that we're doing 2 runs now. It turns out that there was enough downtime between the middle-high run and the elementary runs that they can start the high school just 5 minutes early, 10 minutes earlier. It's really a small amount. Start the middle school 5 to 10 minutes later, do nothing till the elementary schools, and get in that 3rd run. I'm convinced of this not only because Jeff and Barry believe it can happen, but apparently the drivers believe that they can make it work. So that sounds like it's probably going to work. Now, what is something that you probably haven't heard before, to remind you, this involved eliminating service to any middle and high school student that lived within a mile of their school. So that's a change for the first time. We're specifically excluding them. That was being done not because we don't have the time to pick them up, but because the only way you get the savings is by reducing the number of drivers and buses being used. Now, no one likes the fact that that's a total of, my memory is it was a total of about 80 kids for the middle school and maybe 50 kids for the high school. Although when I was at a school council meeting at the middle school, you know, I had parents telling me, my kids don't use the buses. And yet I know the plan is set up on the assumption that every kid will use the bus at some point in their school year. So we're now thinking, I shouldn't say we, Jeff Tatro is now thinking he'll actually send out a notice to the parents asking them, either in the positive or the negative, do you want bus service or do you not want bus service, so he can have a better idea of the number of total students that he'll
The
be
parents that live within a mile.
to everybody.
Oh.
To everybody. And that way he'll be able to tell whether he's got the capacity, this is the key, the capacity to in fact eliminate that mile problem. Because if in fact by preparing to service everybody, we're eliminating people and then end up with buses that are that have extra space, that would be silly. So stay tuned, I guess is the word. I just wanted to give you an update that we've solved the quote financial problem, but to do so at the moment, it would preclude some people from being picked up. Mike.
But as things stand now, I mean, it's a matter of town meeting deciding, no, you're gonna get 1.4, because we've
That's
put
correct.
1.6,
That's-
status quo.
That's correct, absolutely correct. Our vote is our vote,
Yeah.
right. But keep in mind that on March 5th, which is soon, I'm supposed to be meeting with Barry and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator again to continue the process of negotiating this budget situation. So anyway, non-net is in flux, but it's getting to the point where it might actually be manageable. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of time now to make that work. And Mike's point is well taken. The only vote that exists is for 1.6. Net school spending. The difference between the town and the schools right now is $1.75 million.
Can I interrupt you here?
Yes.
Just taking me?
Yes.
Because I'm not a numbers guy. $25,269,099. What is that in respect to what we got this year?
Almost exactly the same,
So it's level funded.
yes.
I think he came up with 60,000.
It wasn't, it was slightly over level funded
Yeah.
before the latest cut of 130,000. Okay?
So it's level funded, so so just correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to go on the meeting.
No, I've got the numbers right here. The initial number was 25,400,000.
All right, so they want to fund the school department at FY12 figures.
Yes,
Unless you go up with
FY12 figures.
correct, correct.
Wow.
That's
I
ridiculous.
hadn't thought of it that way, but that's true.
I had thought of it that way, but I didn't want to say it.
Well, I said it.
I'm not supporting any kind. Tough. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff, I'm sorry.
No, you know, this is, so, By the way, I was asked by the president of the union with whom I had a conversation whether I believed that the town numbers had integrity. They were solid numbers, that this wasn't an accounting issue, et cetera, et cetera. I believe the town administrator has his hands around this, and I believe the numbers have integrity, and I don't believe
That's fine.
it's a spending problem, as you have said many times, Cliff, it's a revenue problem. Anyway, so Dr. Rabinovich's 5 pieces to bridging that gap of $1.75 million consists of level funding the non-salary line items, subtracting savings from known retirements. I don't know why I use the word subtract. But in any event, it's simply the result of highly paid teachers retiring and lower paid teachers being hired. So the net impact is $221,000. Level funding the expense items is $139,000. Eliminating the instructional leaders is $186,000, and converting the textbooks and technology spending to borrowing is $392,000. And finally, reorganizing the central office is $135,000. All that adds up to $1,073,000, leaving a current problem of $676,000. Part of the reason I consider this to be dire is that I do not consider those numbers, the remaining difference of 676, to be a valid number. And the reason is because the town administrator took $130,000 from our budget as a result of getting the cherry sheets from the governor and the result of getting a new request from Upper Cape.
So you're saying it's more?
Right. So initially it was $130,000 less of a difference. I believe, based on talking to legislators at a legislative breakfast that I attended, that there is no chance that the governor's numbers will be the final numbers and they will be significantly less. At least that's what those legislators believe. And presumably they know more than we do. And on top of that, they were not legislators who were not friends of education. They wanted the number to be as high as possible. And the reason, by the way, is very simple. The governor's numbers are based on $800 million of new revenue based on the increase in the state income tax and a decrease in the state sales tax, and the combination of those, plus a few other things, was $800 million in new revenue. The legislature is apparently not prepared to go along with it. And so what that means to Chapter 78 is anybody's guess, but we were specifically told, and I quote, "Do not use the governor's numbers to balance your budget."
So how do you balance your budget? Does anybody have a suggestion?
When will we know them? Like, when do we get the real numbers?
Well,
Always happens
August.
around April.
right. We'll get another set of numbers from the House sometime in April. We'll be
Right
lucky
before.
if we get them before
I
town
was gonna say
meeting.
prior to town meeting, or?
Maybe before town meeting, maybe not.
Okay.
One year, I think we got them on the same night as town meeting.
And then, of course, the Senate numbers come after that, and then there's the reconciliation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a terrible process for a town to go through, especially when you're told the governor's numbers shouldn't be used. So the number of 676, I believe, is actually understated. On top of that, I, for one, and this gets to the vision, because a reorganization has to be approved by this committee. I, for one, am not personally comfortable with all of the things that are on that list. So before I go into this meeting on the 5th, I wanted to get a sense of the committee's joint vision about the reorg in particular, the elimination of those instructional leaders, because those are the two big items that directly impact how education operates in Wareham. And then the second thing I wanted you to understand is that even if we came to terms on those two items, the other three are pretty non-controversial, we've got that remaining 676 plus whatever the state does to us. Now, if you take that 676 and divide it by 40,000, which is the number Barry uses to estimate the number of teachers that would have to be laid off, that's about 17 teachers. I I think the state could easily raise that number to 20. And it seems to me at that point, you're starting to, you have to question whether you can continue to provide education the way our strategic plan envisions it being provided, the way we probably joined the school committee to support. We have to start to think, is there another way to provide education?
If we have to do that, Jeff, I'll wait my turn. I'm
So
sorry.
that's, I don't want to hear myself talk, so I want to put that on the table, and that's 676 plus, and it will be plus, is a lot of teachers and a huge impact. So in my mind, we have,
That's probably within that.
right.
Well,
In my
and it's
mind, we
a
have,
point of information.
so I'd like to bounce around 3 issues. One is the reorg, and the second issue is the instructional leaders, but to me that's a reorg, part of a reorg. And the third is the cutting of 17 to 20 more teachers. And whether it just gets done and we live with it, or is there something else we should be doing besides? Now, I want to throw one wrinkle out, and I'm not trying to play anarchist when I say this, but there is another approach we can take. And yes, I'm saying this on television. And that is, we can simply say that cutting another 17 to 20 teachers is going to, due to the school system, is going to be unacceptable to the education of our children, period. They cannot be educated at a satisfactory quality so that we can be supportive of it. We can take that position to town meeting, and we can simply say we're not backing off. Let's say we agree to the $1 million cut. We're not backing off on the final 700,000 or whatever it is, and we're going to stick to that, and we're going to force town meeting to cut those teachers because we're not going to compromise in any kind of negotiation with the town like we did last year. Part of me thinks, fool me once, because we hoped that we get the support of the town at the override debt exclusion process. We didn't, so it seems to me we should learn from that message and maybe hold ourselves to the fact that a certain number, below a certain number is unacceptable, and we can't educate children below a certain number.
Right, but the only thing that I'd say about the debt exclusions and the overrides is that I don't want to continue just to basically say, oh, shame on it. I mean, we tried that and it didn't work. We also didn't campaign for it whatsoever. We basically put it out there and it failed. And the tactics that went about that. So, I mean, I believe that there is a third option here, which is a hybrid. It's a combination where we continue to do our due diligence and talk about philosophy or vision and talk about anything that's available to us to be able to restructure or reorg so then we do find cost savings, but still go after it again. So I don't understand why we can't do a combination, because just chalking it up to, it didn't work last time. There's a different way that we can go about it that it might succeed.
Okay, so just to be clear, what you're saying as a technical matter is that we advocate on town meeting floor for a contingency budget. That's technically what you're saying.
Yes.
And that contingency budget would need to be ratified by the voters at a subsequent election.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Mike?
You give them choices.
I would disagree with the statement that you say we didn't campaign for it. I mean, there was an election, and 2 of the members sitting up here today campaigned pretty hard at the onset, thing that they do, and on WCTV, Gumbo show. I mean, the superintendent was out there. We didn't campaign enough, but we did campaign, and the rest is history. But the hybrid thing is a little appealing to me, but I'd say this: I'm done with us taking the risk. It's time. We took all the risk last time. If it's going to be a hybrid, someone beside us needs to take the risk, and there should be part of the problem was that people said, well, you have no idea where that money's going to go after year 1. You don't know if it's going to go to the schools, if it's going to go to somewhere else. There should be some sort of a memorandum of understanding between the Board of Selectmen and us and the town administrator that says, okay, here's, if we're gonna advocate for any kind of a, override debt exclusion or what have you, think this is what we expected to happen over the course of 5 years at least.
Just so you know, that's legally not binding.
It's not binding. It's not binding, but it's as good as the people, signing on to it.
Yes,
Giving them some accountability.
it's true.
I mean, that it's as good as the people that sign on to it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you agree with Rhonda about advocating for a contingency budget, but you only want to do it if you can get all of the town leaders behind it.
Yeah, and it's not even my first choice, but I won't vote against something like that. But I am saying this, is we took all the risk. We put textbooks on there, you know what I mean? We should have fought for that in the budget, and we didn't. And let someone else do the fighting. And let's support them. Let's say, yeah, we support if the town wants to do an override or something for libraries and municipal agencies, let's be on board with that and say, yeah, absolutely, campaign with them,
Cliff?
I've been very vocal about this. You know I have, everyone in the committee knows I have been vocal about it. I've been doing a little unscientific research of my own as I go through town. And I've been simply asking people that I meet on the street, in the coffee shop, or wherever, what's the number one problem in Wareham? Identify to me the number one problem in Wareham. And almost always, I'm saying a plus or minus 90%. The answer is public education. That's the number one problem in Wareham. It's the number one social problem. It's the number one employment problem. It's the number one crime problem. It's the number one fiscal problem. All of those problems that we deal with on a daily basis stem from support for public education or lack of support for public education. So if the townsfolk are telling me, as one of their elected officials, that the number one problem in Wareham is public education, then why isn't it the number one priority? I would like to know why it's not the number one priority. And when I mean number one priority, I mean exactly that. Not in competition with anything else, but the number one priority. Okay? This idea that the school committee has not been cooperating, going below level funded and supporting that is cooperating. Coming up with draconian cuts like this is cooperating. Working together with all the boards is cooperating. But what I see is that the folks on the other side of the ledger, so to speak, I'm not saying the other side of the issues, the other side of the ledger, okay, are asking us to revert back to 2012 budget? That's impossible. It's not working. And regardless of whether you agree with any of these line item cuts or not, all right, the bottom line is we're going to have to figure out a way, based on their numbers, to cut almost $2 million out of our budget. That's not workable. It's not even a matter of cutting anymore. It's not workable. I'm ready, to be honest with you, if this is actually reality, I'm ready to go into receivership right now. I'm ready to say to the state of Massachusetts, come take us over, because we can't do it anymore.
Good.
But let me finish my point. I haven't finished
I
yet.
didn't realize you were just taking a
All right.
breath.
So the point is, why in the world wouldn't the three boards involved here say, once and for all, that this is the number one priority? We cannot make it work with this kind of a draconian method or proposal, that we need to put our heads together and come up with a strategy that addresses this major problem. And you cannot, in all sincerity, look at any more strategic cuts. They're not available. They're not available. These three boards have got to put their heads together and say, how do we raise revenues? And they have to have the courage and the leadership to do it and support it. Then, Rhonda, we'll get some mileage on this. but not until then. So I agree with Mike, and I also agree with Rhonda. We've got to get ourselves as a town, and I'm not saying their side and our side, ourselves as a town to address the #1 issue in this town, and that's education. And all the boards have got to recognize that that's got to be the top priority. We're shortchanging our kids, and we're making everything worse in Wareham. Property values are going down, crime's going up, unemployment is going up, and it all stems from public education.
I will share with you a conversation that Mike and I witnessed at the last FinCom. The police are dismayed that they're not getting their cruisers. The police are dismayed that they're getting an extraordinary amount of pressure on their overtime budget because they would like to actually have more officers because they've lost some officers, but the academy doesn't have officers to give them. So the town administrator is between a rock and a hard place. They're spending more than their budget, but if they don't, they aren't properly manning or personing the streets, and the finance committee is telling them, you're spending money you don't have. So we're not the only group between a rock and a hard place, which gets to your point, is you need all 3 boards to say we need to solve this problem.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, we're not the only.
And I'm not blaming your leadership, Jeff. Trust me when I say that. We have a real major problem here, and we cannot continue to put our heads in the sand. Can't do it. We've got to be committed to solving it.
Not suggesting we have been putting.
No.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
And to tie it together with the discussion and the, maybe a hybrid system and what Cliff is saying, and in my point about us not putting it at risk, I mean, pick a number, whatever number, this town needs to do it right, for the foreseeable future. I mean, the town administrator said at his meeting that, we're spending more in benefits than we're to run the town. And he said that trend isn't going to reverse anytime soon. So, I mean, you got to look at maybe reopening collective bargaining town-wide on a whole bunch of issues. But to get at the MOU thing that I brought up earlier, I mean, in not putting our side at risk like we've done in the past, let the chief put his cruisers on a debt exclusion. We'll support him. And have it be part of that MOU that, yeah, year 1, these are the funds that are going to go to the cruisers, or, whatever he needs.
I understand.
Year 1, and then year 2, we split it up 50-50 or something like that, something like that.
I'd like to.
And the other point that I'm trying to make is, and then I'll shut up, I won't say any more. I know for a fact that there are considerable increases in line items on the downside budget. Some in education. The increase to Upper Cape Vocational is already factored in. How much was it?
$500,000.
$500,000.
And by the way, something else that we heard at that meeting, that last FinCom meeting, is that working at Upper Cape is probably the only recession-proof job you'll ever find. Because they're on record telling us that they haven't had to reduce services at all.
So,
They did say that.
I need to say something.
Please.
Okay. I've now been on the board for, going in my 3rd year, and I absolutely love all the different opinions and passions that are on here, but I feel like that we still continue to talk about the problems instead of actually putting down on paper action steps to solutions. Meaning, so one idea, we all agree that we wholeheartedly support Upper Cape, but that if we're been level funding or cutting our budget for the past 2-3 years, that needs to be shared. And so one thing that came out when we were first waiting to get online was the fact that each one of the boards need to go and talk to their boards in each one of those communities.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I would love it if we talked in those terms, an idea that actually has some actionable steps, and then putting down on paper by which date, at least from our side, we're going to advocate and communicate to other boards to do the same and ask them to put a time on that, and then our own timeline on when we're going to do that. So the chair calling the chair of that board, or me finding out, maybe a member, and saying, hey, I'd like to introduce myself, and talking to a member of the school committee in another community. Like, just being able to put that down on paper. Another action item is to come up with a town meeting article. I don't know, but being able to just actually put down and putting dates behind actionable steps on how we're going to start moving forward with solving this problem, instead of continuing to vocalize the dire straits that we're in or the problems that we're in.
Well, candidly, that's why I put it on the agenda, because on March 5th, when I meet with the town administrator and the board of selectmen, chair, and Barry, I want to develop some action items that will get us some position. But to Mike's point, we cannot do this alone. And we've never had a unified town leadership behind revenue raising or anything close to it.
Never will.
Because there, I'm sorry to interrupt, but because there has been a distrust, and I'll say that I've heard it on this board, when it comes to the town meeting line items, or town side line items, and there has been distrust from boards that are responsible for the town side on how the on how the schools are spending, or, I mean, that.
I don't actually even almost care what the reason is. It just hasn't existed.
Correct.
And so, if we,
Admit the problem before you start talking on a solution.
there is reason to believe that perhaps we can get some unity this year. And that will be my attempt on March 5th, which is why I need to bring us back to that sheet of paper, because some guidance needs to be given both to the superintendent as well as to myself with respect to the near future. I want to address the issue of the reorganization.
Before you do that, sorry, can I just, it's a clarifying question with these numbers.
Sure.
So the convert textbooks and technology spending, when we were all together at, like Mike said, the HAT meeting, wasn't even the 392 in question, because that wasn't, the FinCom was unaware of that.
It's in question only in the sense that because it's borrowing, it needs to be approved by town meeting. It's not in question with respect to, quote, can we afford it?
Okay. All right, so then that's,
Town meeting doesn't approve it, it doesn't go on our cut strategies.
If town meeting doesn't approve it, then we don't have $392,000 to spend on
It's gotta
textbooks
come
and
somewhere else.
technology. It's got to
Right.
come from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But given the fact that it's within our borrowing capacity, and we'll have the support of the town administrator, we're happy
and
to
the
hold it.
FinCom?
Excuse me?
And the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen?
I'll find out on the 5th.
Okay.
So, we need to give the superintendent some guidance with respect to two specific positions. One is the business manager, because Anna is retiring as of the end of this year, and that position either needs to be filled, and to be filled with a type of person, either the same kind of person, a business manager, or combined with the town position, which is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen's idea, because they have a vacancy of the town accountant. So I would like to get a sense from this committee as to whether they are supportive of combining that position,
Combining, again, what?
the Director of Operations and Finance, and the
Anna.
town accountant, into one CFO for the school town entity as a whole.
I think they have to be certified.
It would be 50% town, 50%.
I think they have to be certified.
Yes, they do, but that's a relatively minor hurdle, but
No.
yes. Yeah. They have to be SBO, School Business Officer Certified, yes.
Right.
So the question is, what guidance should we give, well, should you give me for the 5th, and to the superintendent as to whether he should go about replacing that individual or supporting the idea of joining the two positions together? Does anybody have any comments or questions about that issue? Because guidance needs to be given.
I do.
Yes.
My initial thought is, when I read this over, was that, number one was the certification issue, but if that's not a major issue, all right, there's two other issues. First one is, I'm the old guy here, and actually, I think several people were on the board when this happened. We went from an assistant superintendent to a business manager, and in so doing, it was another way in which the school committee, all right, cooperated to cut spending, to cut costs. And it was a cost-cutting maneuver to
Minor.
go, well, no, it wasn't minor. It wasn't minor. It was a better part of about 30 grand.
Go ahead.
Anyways, so it was a cost, and it seemed to have worked out fairly well. I don't like marrying town side and school side for a variety of reasons. So those are my comments.
Okay, Mike?
Kenny and I were on the conference call for that, and, as advisors to him.
Oh, right, yes.
When he brought it up.
Right.
And it was in its infancy then. I mean, he was just toying with it then. And it sounded good to me then, it sounds good to me now. I support it. And I'm going to disagree with Dr. Sylvia.
It's okay.
Just to say that I think it's a great thing to have this person be both town and school, because it's the ultimate in transparency, really.
It has
When you
nothing to
think
do with
about it.
transparency. It has to do with
No,
doing the job.
each side's.
I know what you're saying.
It's not separate. It's all one.
Yeah, but
person.
that shouldn't be the goal, transparency.
No,
The
no.
goal is efficiency of the job.
I have the floor.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So anyway,
You're right.
so I'm a big fan of it for that, and it does save money, and and I support it.
Any other comments on the combining of the two accounting officer positions?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I was at the meeting. It makes sense. I mean, actually, we talked about if there were some conflicts as to where that person was going to go if they had to be in two places at once, and Barry felt comfortable that that's all workable.
It would have to be in the contract. We'd want her here, him or her here at our meetings, just like Anna would be, you know.
Rhonda? Were you finished?
We're just talking about that one, or?
No,
Yeah,
just the
that one.
accounting position. Yeah. Rhonda, accounting?
So I think that my concern is that we don't have the new superintendent in place, and I don't know what skill set that person will be coming in with. Meaning that if we have someone that comes, it would make me want someone who has a strong fiscal background if I combine this position. So if I combine this position, then I would want someone that had a financial, fiscal background, business sense, and somehow, because what this position to me said was what I was looking forward to in rehiring for this position was lower salary, of course, to be able to have cost savings, but someone that had a business/accounting background, that it was a true, numbers person to be able to take a different look at our budget and come from an accounting background and take a look at it. Will I get that with this combined person? Maybe, maybe not. But if I have someone that is solely focused on the school side of the budget, I know that I'll get it. And so that's the only thing that worries me, is that I will be looking for some attributes in the superintendent that I might want from a managerial side, not so much from a business accounting side. So I don't 100% support this.
I must tell you, I am not a supporter of this for multiple reasons. The first is my background in management and organization tells me that this is a position that would have to be filled by a super person, because they are, right now, it's DOR, Department of Education. All of a sudden, this person is going to have to be an expert in dealing with both departments. Finding that person is incredibly difficult. Then, to whom does this person report? Not to the town administrator, because it has an education. not to the superintendent because it has the town. There is literally no one in this organization, in this entire town, to whom this person can report singly, which means their whole, the politics of this situation, of this person is exactly what Cliff is demonstrating, and that person would have to be the most confident, the most secure, the most knowledgeable person to survive in that kind of setting, even in a relatively good situation. Secondly, to elaborate on what Rhonda's point is, I don't want to have to worry about the expertise of our superintendent with respect to the business side of the schools in choosing a superintendent. That to me is asking us to compromise, and I don't want to do that. We can't afford to compromise. We need to get the best chief education officer for this town, and it seems to me if he doesn't have to worry, or she doesn't have to worry about the business side because we have a highly competent business manager in there, then we're much more likely to get the best possible person for the town. And finally, I'm not impressed with the amount of savings associated with this reorganization. We can save substantially over the cost of a director of operations and finance if we just go for someone who has not been a past senior principal for many, many years and is simply a competent business person. I think the savings are on the order of $30,000+ over what we're spending now. So for that reason and all the other reasons, I can't support it. So I sense we're somewhat split on this issue, but maybe I should call for an actual vote to see if we can give specific guidance to our superintendent with respect to whether he should continue to be on a recruiting mode for a business manager, or whether he should move forward on being involved in a joint position. So if someone wants to make a motion to that effect, or do we want to continue discussing it?
I don't think we can vote on each one individually because it's tied into this reorganization, adding assistant superintendent, which I wouldn't support.
Oh, we can.
I think they are actually separate and distinct pieces. And the reason is because there's savings associated with going from a director of operations and finance to a school business manager. That was, until this idea was presented by the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the direction that Barry was going. So the question is, do we ask him to go back to his original direction, or do we move towards accepting the notion of combining the positions?
Okay, well, can we vote, and then I have to go?
Yes. A motion?
I'll make a motion
Yes.
that we not consider at this time combining the town and school accountant positions.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
3, 2, 0. Okay. Obviously, time is short for you, Ken.
He's got to go.
Assistant superintendent next?
Well, some of you, or maybe all of you know that Bob Luzon will be retiring at the end of this year.
Right.
That, assuming we get a school business manager in the central office across from Barry, we now are automatically down to one person. And of course, we have Stacy as a supervisor of SPED. I believe Barry's concept was to not replace Bob, to elevate Stacy as director. I don't want to be presumptuous about this. I'm pretty sure that was his idea, or at least to create a director of SPED, not student services. And then
Or
And you
at
would
least
have to
open
put
up
it
the
out to
job.
bid.
Doesn't have to be her.
it doesn't have to be her, but the job would be elevated.
Correct.
And then to have one person, which may or may not be Jan, I have no idea what his thoughts are about who would be the assistant superintendent, but that would be the direction that he would be going, which is made easier, obviously, by Bob's retirement. So, questions, comments, concerns?
The only, I have some concerns, but the only kind of a problem I have with it, And again, I'm open to have my mind changed on this. The only kind of a problem I have initially is the fact that we're now hiring a CEO. We are going out into an intergalactic search to find a CEO. You know, and these are critical parts of that leadership team.
Yes.
I know where you're going.
He
You know,
or she
and
should be
I-
making that decision.
I can understand that we don't want to wait for the last minute, because if you wait for the last minute, or if you wait till you have the CEO on board, all right, that some of the cream may end up being skim milk. I understand that. But the flip side of that is that these people are people that are going to be integral to the success of this school system and to the success of the new superintendent. So that's why I'm kind of having a problem with it. Now, can we get away without a director of special ed? Absolutely not. Student services. We can't get along without director of student services. Now, whether or not that is a combination of the supervisor, that is an administrative decision that I'll leave up to my high-priced administrators. But in terms of an assistant superintendent, no, I'm not in favor of an assistant superintendent. We just voted to continue with the business manager. Why would I want an assistant superintendent?
I agree. Having a one-to-one supervisor relationship, meaning superintendent to assistant superintendent, and assistant superintendent then supervises the body, I'm not comfortable with. I'm very, very comfortable with small executive leadership that then reports to the CEO, and that executive leadership then has specific goals and responsibilities and are held accountable for that. And that's what I've seen work that I'm very, very comfortable in. So I cannot support an assistant superintendent, and I'm going to agree with my colleague that I feel very, very uncomfortable that we are making decisions right now on very key pieces in this administration without having the new leader on board. And I mean, I support Barry 100%, saying I need to make sure that the business of the school is done. I get that, but can we at least take a look at how it can be done in the interim while we're looking? It's not like that we're talking about 2 years from now. We're talking about a very short window here where we can just put on the brakes a little bit and basically say, I'm going to figure out a way to be able to maintain with what I have until the new leader comes in, so then that person can also have input into the structure that they're looking for. Again, it's not so much, it is the people, but it's also the structure that they feel is going to move this district in the right direction.
You know, if I was, oh, I'm sorry.
We're at a little bit of a disadvantage because our superintendent isn't here right now, and he's usually here for our meetings. But I wish we had more of his input. It sounded like you guys aren't in favor of this whole bullet item.
No.
Well,
I would say the sub-bullets, no. The first bullet, yes.
which first bullet?
Reorganize central office.
Oh, but you already.
But how it's done, I wouldn't. But
it's
again, it's an
moved.
administrative position.
Most of this stuff is moot now.
We can talk about.
Let me suggest something that would simplify this. First of all, I agree with you 100%, and I sense that other people feel the same way. There's something unfortunate about bringing someone in and having these major decisions made before the fact. So it would seem to me easy to. It would seem to me easy, even if we were supportive of the assistant superintendent position. That is a position that has to come to this body for our approval by law. It would seem clear that we could simply say, we're not approving that position until the new superintendent is in place, and then he or she can make the decision as to whether she wants to move in that direction. So that's easy. But getting savings out of the central office, to Rhonda's point about you're agreeing with the first bullet, it seems to me, essential. So there's two ways to get that savings. One is we've already agreed on, which is a school business manager in lieu of the director of operations and finance. And the second one is essentially solved itself in the sense that we have a resignation, and that person doesn't have to be replaced. And if that person was replaced, that would have to come to us anyway, also by law.
Which other
Student
specs?
Because
services.
the only
Student
position
services.
in that central office that doesn't require our approval is Director of Curriculum and Instruction. So both those positions, so what I'm really hearing in terms of guidance is that from a budgetary perspective, that the 135,000 and hopefully more should be garnered by a school business manager in lieu of the Director of Operations and Finance, and removing one person from the Everett Center. However however the new person ultimately decides to organize that, we'll wait to see how that person decides to recommend.
Well, he had the floor.
Are you all set, Mike?
I don't know if it all falls apart. I think Kenny said if we just pick and choose, you know.
We're not, it doesn't fall apart, because all we're really saying is we agree saving 135,000 or more out of the central office is a good thing, and we approve of that direction.
But I do want to go on record that I do support, I mean, I went on record before, but I do support what the superintendent had put forth. I was actually excited about the assistant superintendent position, because the whole point of that would be to groom the next superintendent, and we wouldn't be shelling out 15 grand for a search committee, a search firm right now.
Well,
But you can do the same thing with 3 executives.
yeah.
Ken?
The thing too is, I actually, 3+ years ago, made the motion to eliminate the assistant superintendent position because the talk was always being over-administrated. And Dr. Sylvia was on the committee at that time. So that would be the only bullet that I would have a problem with on this. The more I listen, I agree with Rhonda, and Cliff also said it, that Bill Parcells wouldn't take this job because we're not letting him shop for the groceries, and you know that line. And I think right now what we're doing is picking all of these positions, not so much for the new superintendent, whether she or he wants that. So it's hard for me to vote on these individual things right now. I think part of the elimination of the Director of Finance and Operations was tied into combining those accounting positions, right?
Actually, I only need one more vote, and I think then I'll be in a position to give effective guidance
Okay.
to our superintendent.
Could I just make a comment?
Yes.
All right. My comment is, it's almost moot, because we have direct control over the Director of Student Services. And whether we choose or not choose to fill that position is entirely up to us.
Yes, it is, but
But I think that
Barry
we are
believes-
we're giving a sense to our CEO as to what our feelings are.
we don't want him wasting time.
We already have, right, we already have a curriculum director of curriculum instruction, okay? So I think that the whole thing is moot. But just to put, if I could, try to put Mike's mind at rest, all right? We don't need an assistant superintendent to groom the new superintendent. We've got administrators, we've got principals that all, for all intents and purposes, are certified as superintendents, and for all intents and purposes, have been part of the leadership team.
But the principals aren't working in that office.
No, they're not, but they're part of the leadership team.
Okay, the only other piece that I would like to be able to give our guidance to Barry about is whether he should or should not be recruiting for an assistant superintendent position. My sense from the committee is the answer is no. And so I'd like a motion and a vote to ask the superintendent not to recruit for an assistant superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion or concerns about this motion?
I didn't hear the second.
I did.
Clifton.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0.
What do you, well,
Mike?
no.
I'm gonna say nay,
Okay,
but,
that's fine.
but,
I understand.
no, but, I understand your point. I just,
Okay, that's 4-1-0.
I
Okay,
understand what you're saying, Mike. I
and
do.
then the final thing I wanted to come out of tonight,
Can I ask one question?
please.
Do you know if the subtract savings from known retirement includes the retirements of Bob Luzon and?
No, it does not.
Okay.
These are all teachers.
So then, this, I know this 135,
Should be quite doable.
doable, I'm thinking that it could go up.
That's why I said 135 plus.
Okay, because
It could be close.
Because I'm looking, I know
It'd be
your
over
fourth
two.
point is coming in as like 186, you do 186 plus 135, so it's 321.
Right,
That's where the number should
Right.
go.
that's what I was thinking.
We can hold off on the discussion in my mind about the elimination of the instructional leaders. I don't think we need a vote on that unless someone wants to make a vote on that.
We don't need to
because-
vote on it, but I'll give you my opinion, I know you're not gonna like it. If it comes down to 30 teachers and instructional leaders,
30?
whatever.
20,
17
17.
teachers or whatever, 20 teachers.
If it comes down to 10, I still would,
For me, there's no decision.
cannot increase class size.
Ditto.
Mr. Chair, I have to excuse myself.
The only other guidance I would like is, there's two ways to look at the way we provide education. One is, continue to do all the things we're doing, but simply do it with fewer people, which obviously means more class sizes, higher class sizes, or to reduce the number of things that we do, so that class sizes don't rise if we have to reduce the number of teachers involved. I have asked the director of curriculum and instruction to prepare a report, which I will share with you when it's final. I've seen a draft, it was too much for tonight, obviously, that will give you, by subject area, maybe even by teacher, exactly how many students are being taught in how many classes. Now, you may have to say, we've already seen sort of a report like this. What this gets at the heart of is, and it's an unacceptable subject in some ways, it gets at the heart of, if a class is under-enrolled, can we still afford to be doing it if we're causing class sizes to rise somewhere else? So it really gets to the issue of electives. It gets to the issue of specials. It gets to the issue of independent arts. It even, as the president of the union said to me, gets to the issue of sports. So all of the things that are not required by law, it seems to me, if we're going to be laying off, whether it's 16, 17, 20 instructional leaders, if we're getting to the point of laying off people, it seems to me we have to ask ourselves, can we afford to continue to provide all of the subjects, all of the courses all of the activities?
Well,
Or should we in fact think about the fact that we have to reduce them to minimize the number of teachers, that we have to lay off? So that's a subject area which I'm more than happy to stay tonight and talk about, but I wanted Ken to hear it, so before he left.
Well, I already got the class size report, class by class. I have that information.
Rhonda?
All right, this to me feels like, at least this part feels to me like throwing up sports, that we have to get rid of sports, and what I would like to see in this is, yes, elimination of non-core curriculum along with scenarios. So scenarios of, we have one, get rid of instructional leaders. Another one is, let's take a look at that. Like, that's got to go into buckets, so then you're taking a look at it. What I'm afraid of is that we go down a rabbit hole a lot of the time, not a lot of time, but some of the time, we go down a rabbit hole when it comes to just one way of cutting, and that's it, instead of looking at all the different options. And one of them does, while we're still talking about revenue. So I agree with you that we have to, I'm glad that there's work been done on it, and let's take a look at it. But I just don't want us to go all the way down in that rabbit hole, that that's the only thing that we're considering. And we need to consider more than just that one piece.
Look, this is premature, and we're going to have discussions about it, but I'm going to tell you right now. All right, as far as I'm concerned, educationally and programmatically, we're at bare bones right now. We're at bare bones right now. And you know what? We have elective structures at the secondary level. We have experiential education, whatever's left at the elementary level and at the middle school level. All right, we're at bare bones now in terms of experiential and those little extra things that students need to have to round off their curricula. So, you know, we can make decisions based on class size or whatever, but you know what? Those are decisions that I feel are best left to the administrators. And I don't want to get into, you know, we've got a calculus class with only 6 kids in it. Why are we offering that? Well, because those 6 kids are really good math students. They need and they want some calculus. So I don't want to get into why are we doing that for 6 kids, 7 kids, or whatever the case may be.
That's not a good example, though,
What?
because that's part of the core.
Well, advanced calculus is not part of the core.
Well,
It's part of math. It's math.
math.
But the point is, there are a lot of other
Take 4 math
programs.
courses.
There are a lot of other programs that round off a student's education that allow them to accumulate their elective structure. So, you know, I think we're really going down a slippery slope here. I mean, we are at the bare minimum now. We just built a middle school with no shops and no specialized instructional areas.
Keep in mind, I am not suggesting that this committee get down to a course-by-course decision about elimination.
I understand what you're saying.
What I am suggesting is that there's a philosophy that needs to be articulated. Either we try to maintain, however minimal you think it is,
Pretty minimal.
maintain what we've got, or we consciously go about eliminating, saying to our superintendent, present and future, eliminate things that don't have to be taught because we can't afford to have class sizes go to 40.
But you know what we've eliminated already. You know what we've eliminated already.
And with respect to the rabbit hole, I don't think we're that narrow. That may be your perception, but I think we have considered lots of things over the years, and I don't think the decision-making has been sufficient, so narrow that we've left out good alternatives. So,
I don't think I was saying that.
going down a rabbit hole had a pretty pejorative tone to it. Yes, Mike.
I think the choice is gonna sort of be made for us. I mean, they're looking at 676,000 plus. You know, if we have to contend with that, I mean, how do you maintain with what you've got? I mean, how do you do that?
You do it badly.
You do it badly. I mean, we can pinch around the corners about instructional leaders, but everything's going to be on the table. The co-op, sports, extracurricular, everything will be on the table.
That's just the point. In fact, some things don't get on the table, believe it or not.
Well, maybe we can have a private conversation about that.
Some things don't get on the table.
Such as.
I don't want to go there.
Okay.
I'm going to put this on the agenda for when our superintendent is here. This was intended to be high level, just to get people thinking about it, because that 676 is not going to go away.
No.
I do not believe, sitting here, at the risk of sounding excessively negative, I do not believe that we're in a position to think new revenue is going to show up for fiscal year 14. I just don't.
Then we have to be ready to do what we have to do, like Mike said. Then we got to be ready as a committee to do what we have to do.
I'm not even sure what that means, but I don't need to.
What it means is we go in with an unbalanced budget. That's what we have to do, then that's what we'll do.
Okay. Is there any other business that the committee would like to bring before us?
Yes, I do.
Please.
I'm sorry. And I know you guys are going to be very upset. But I will not be here on the 10th. And you said that's a very important meeting.
Because we're going to have a wonderful presentation from children and the
Okay.
second grade maths
Well,
teacher.
I'm sorry, but I cannot be here, and if you would like to change that, I am available on the 3rd, if you want to change the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I'll let you know. Anything else?
No.
Oh, yes.
You've had your shot.
No, it was something else. I wanted to do it at the beginning of the meeting, but we sort of got sidetracked. And I know that there aren't many people here, but just for the record, I'd like to have a moment of silence for someone that I really thought an awful lot of, and you folks didn't know him because he's been retired for a while, but I know that if anybody went to Wareham Public Schools, they do know who I'm talking about. A very incredibly fantastic teacher passed away this week, and his name was Owen Burke, and his wife is the retired principal at Wareham High School. He was a retired guidance counselor and history teacher. He was Ivy League educated. He was an incredibly bright man. He was brought up in Bronx, New York, went to Columbia University, and he was just an incredible individual. And he passed away this week, and his contributions to Wareham Public Schools are pretty well documented. So I'd like to, at least for the record, have a moment of silence for someone that dedicated so much time to our school system.
Moment of silence for Ellen Burke, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Second?
Mike, second, Mike?
Well,
Second, yeah.
Understand.
Okay.
we're adjourned.